come in and wanted to cover 100 each for the job.
Camera's running.
We're waiting on Mr. Air.
Oh.
We're good? Let's move on to police department.
Hold on. Did we lose power?
Yes.
Paint, they paint black.
Yeah, try it
They
now.
have like a
Thank you.
Thank you.
solar shower
Moving
out.
over to the police department.
Not at the
Who wants
house.
to go first?
And what the current actually has means technically
First
that
in the
has
house.
fire inspection.
014443,
Right. Portable bar.
Again, please.
You're not on.
pardon me, 014443, a reduction of $500 to $2,500.
You talking about the copier supplies?
Yes.
That's the correct number there. So we have a recommendation, take the copier down to 2,500. Discussion?
All set.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. We're going to reduce item 014443 down to $2,500. Dan, you have a comment?
Yeah, it's on 014111, full-time. I think that got 20-30 grand.
I'm sorry, what's your number?
I think that's $30,000.
30,000?
Yeah.
Board discussion?
Is that based on the retirement of
Right.
Officer Dan?
Well, I already cut the,
Yeah. it's
I
down.
cut some out to
Yeah.
reflect that. And I think that, that, you know, it depends upon some other decisions you make. But at this point, I don't see how you can justify cutting that much down, because you're gonna have, even if you don't go with a deputy chief position, you've got a lieutenant slot to fill, and granted it'll be filled at a lower rate, so there'll be some savings, but I've built savings in for that line. You're then gonna have to, there'll be some other adjustments. You might be able to cut a little bit more, but until you decide what you're doing on the deputy chief position, I think you can't really cut anything more out of that than what I've done already.
I think it's 76 to like 56, that's 20.
Well, no, you're not gonna go down to 56, that's below what the sergeant's making.
But then they have benefits too, that's.
No matter who you hire, you're gonna have benefits.
Have we increased the full-time equivalent fees at the police department, or are we funding the same?
Right now, this year, we're funding the same equivalent. We had one, I think a couple of years ago, we added an officer, but this is funding at the same level for essentially the same managerial structure we have currently.
So if you take your 2017 expended year-to-date and multiply it by a 3% increase and then a 3% increase on top of that, you'd be at about 478,785. So either we've added an FTE or we've added,
Yeah, 17 is when you added the FTE, going into 18. In 17, you added an FTE, which most of it hit in 18.
so there's a, I'm seeing a $49,000 difference. If I take 2017
Yes.
and I add 3% to that, and then I get to this year's budget and I add another 3% to that, which is, I assume, what the increases amount to.
Right, but we added, in 17, partway through the year, we added a full-time. So part of that hit 17 and part of that hit 18. And we've also had some turnover, which comes in at a lower rate. So that's,
That should
yeah.
reduce it. So
Right.
that would put us at funding at $478,800.
Well, and don't forget to add the shift differential, 8760, in there, because we've added it in this year and it wasn't in the budget. It was a separate line in the budget in 17.
So,
Which is a difference of about $8 grand.
Yeah.
9 grand. We
$9
went on the
grand.
high side.
Yeah, 9
So-
grand, so you're at 482, going to 527. Going from 482 to 516, which is basically that other half an officer, because the impact you get half of the officer in 17, and then the additional second half you added in 18. So you're then going from 516 to 527, which is, is less than a 3% increase that you're looking at there.
But we've also had
But
some
you've also
significant
had turnover where
which
people
creates a
who have
reduction.
longevity and years of experience and were paid at that level of years of experience have now been replaced with newer officers, which should be reducing your actual payroll costs.
Well, the turnover we had, we've had a few that had longevity that turn over. We've also had some turnover that had less longevity than the people we hired. I mean, they were moving in, basically, you didn't have any savings, so. This was done by taking salary of everybody we have and adding it up.
I just went off the town report, and I just tried guessing, that's why I'm not as smart as you, come up with this 3% or whatever. I took the town report, and I handed it out, and I said, I saw some play in there.
It's actually, I was gonna say, if I look at the town report, I would bet that for what we're losing with Officer Brandon retiring and where his salary was versus what we would hire somebody in at, there's gonna be a pretty significant difference there. Even if you added in all the overtime, because you're paying your overtime at a much lower rate than what we were paying for him.
You're gonna have to you're gonna have the savings from top of scale to low on the scale for the lieutenant scale if you just replace him with somebody moving up within the department to the lieutenant. And you may have some savings on one of the others moving up. I took out some, maybe I could have taken out more. But I think that there is some room still in there, depending upon what you do with the deputy chief's position. If you're not going that route, then you could take some more out of it. But you ought to really have that discussion before you make a decision on cutting more out of the police full-time salary line.
Your 2018 year-to-date at 434, 418. How many more payroll cycles do you expect
3,
out of 26 because they're bi-weekly?
no, and weekly.
Okay, so
Yeah, we're gonna be under because we ran vacant for quite a while. We've got 2 people at the academy. We've got, we had vacancies, so we didn't have all the positions filled all the year. I don't know how many vacancies we ran, the chief probably would speak to that.
I'd like to have the chief come to the podium, please.
And then I have more information that relates to the assistant, so I think we should use it. I would ask you that
Can we
first.
please stay on point? Then when you have your opportunity, you can come.
My decision, all my questions has to resolve around that.
On the
What happens?
On 4111, okay. If you have a question on 4111, please let us have it.
No, I would like the presentation for the assistant chief position.
Yeah, the deputy chief.
Deputy chief, that, all my questions resolve on what happens after that. In the budget lines.
What would you like first? So can I explain how I got when I presented the budget?
You gotta push the button, please.
Plan.
That's tremendous.
We're good? So that line is really just basic math, and it's one of the biggest lines we have. But it's tough to get there on percentages. Remember, I terminated 2 officers in 2018, and we ran short. And then I backfilled with rookies at the lowest possible pay rate that we just sent them 16 weeks to contract. So there was savings there, and I used those numbers in November when I presented the number, which isn't 527, it was higher than that. So it's really just basic math. There's no, adding or subtracting, it's just basic math on the current staffing levels that we have. With this year, it is backfilling the 2018 new hire, because we only funded, it was either May or June of this year, and next year for 19, we've got to fund the full year. the vote is in March, right? So the vote's in March, I knew we wouldn't hire until May or June-ish after background. And that's why I only funded the new position that you allotted, thank you, for 6 months. So going into 19, we gotta fully fund that position. But to get to the bottom line, what is it you need to keep staff without laying them off is basic math. It can be lower than 527, even with the approval that I'm asking you for, with an assistant chief, deputy chief, whatever we want to call it, 3-star general, which we can talk about later. Even with that, we can still reduce that. It can't go to the 400s, I'll be laying off. The last number I ran was about 515 last week. And remember that this was also quick for me too, because we didn't anticipate a normal retirement that occurred. So this isn't anything but that. I can tell you if we're under 500, I'm laying off. If I have the authority to do it, I think it's in the contract that I can. First in, last out, so that's what I'll be doing because it doesn't fund it.
But 515 does fund your payroll.
Running the numbers last week, funded it, the bare bone basic, based on math, and that's all it is hourly rate, as long as they did it right with a step and a COLA, which I believe you folks agreed on. So if I did it right, that's the bottom line. Correction.
515.
No, 5,
No, because you gotta add that 8,000 some, you gotta add that 9,000 back in for shift differential, because you took that out of a separate line and you're adding it back into the payroll line. Here's how I got to 518. If you want to pass that down. And this sheet we were given in October, so it may have changed since then. That it adds up to 518, and then you need to add in
The shift differential we moved into that line.
Shift differential moved into what line?
Full-time hour. We
Remember, we took it
eliminated,
out of the shift differential and we put it into the payroll. So if he's at 515, then you add the 9, you're at 523, so you cut 4,000 more.
Well, I don't agree with that, John, because what I'm looking at is when tying back to my earlier comment, if I look at the gentleman who just left, and even looking at any of the average ranges of any of the officers, even a sergeant, there's $15,000 difference.
But somebody's going to take his place as a lieutenant or a deputy chief.
Okay, and even if I look at the lieutenant that we have, we're funding a lieutenant now who runs our dog program and also accrues a pretty significant amount of extra time running training and doing things like that we've agreed to fund.
Right, so you've got the current lieutenant that's still in the department is at 70,000. The one who left is at 73.
Yep.
So I took 6 out because you're not gonna hire in at the same level that the current lieutenant is. You're gonna hire low on the lieutenant scale, or you're gonna hire, if you don't, assuming you don't go with the deputy chief. So I took 6,000 out. Maybe you could have taken 8 or 9 or 10,000 out, but there's not a lot more money there because as people move up, you're going to have, you're going to have to fill that slot. So you're saving some there. And say that somebody else moves up, there's others coming in at the bottom, but there's not a lot of money there. If you look at the 518 and you add the 8 to 9,000, you're at 523. I mean, I've got in the budget at 527. You take some out, but there's not $20,000 to $30,000 there without really laying off or doing something along those lines.
Well, it's my understanding that the person who retired, who was at a G24-9 status, was replaced by a G18-4.
No,
the person that just left, retired, they have a backfill that position. So right now, I'm currently 1 down.
he's going to most likely hire somebody in near the beginning, and people will move up within the time.
Which is perfectly understandable, but with that upward movement, the difference in replacing that officer with a newer officer is $27,000. So even with upward movement for the other employees, should that occur, if that occurs, as opposed to an external hire, that's a huge amount of money. It needs to be considered, and I think that's what is being brought up, is that it needs to be considered in some manner. I understand what you're saying, that you won't have an exact science, it's a moving target. People will be moving upward in their ranges if they take on different roles. But certainly to begin with, it's clear that there's a very large difference in replacing such a seasoned individual that retired.
The minimum wage, the minimum for a new lieutenant would be $27.81 compared to the $34.78. So $27.81 times 28. So if you hired at the very basic lieutenant, you'd be at 57.
So then your benefits is up to
It's the
Well,
difference
the
of
benefits are still in there for, whatever, the benefits in there for every slot.
So that's a difference of $13,707, and our benefits cost well over 40%, so if you multiply the 13,707 by 1.40, which is what I would propose that you do. It's almost 20, it's $19,190, So you
Well-
can't fund something that doesn't exist anymore. It's,
I took
no
10.
matter what we do, it's going to be lower.
I took 10 out, and you're saying that maybe I should have taken more out. But if you want to take another 10 out, that's about all that you can take out, in my opinion.
Where are you getting that you took 10 out? Because I see a difference of 3 from the original budget to that.
Well, because there was well, I took, I went to the sheet where that was, and I took 6 out plus the 40% roll-up that she was mentioning to get to the 10 figure. Because she's using roll-ups, and you have to use roll-ups in your number that you're using here, if you wanted to. So therefore, that's when I took out between the roll-ups and between what happened on the benefits and what happened on the SAP. I took,
4,800 on benefits
yeah,
from November to now.
that I took out. Well, yeah, and then you add that to the 6 that I took out, that's how I'm getting to my 10. That basically,
You took out 3, not 6. So
Right.
that's 7 total.
well, we had to add in the 8,000, don't forget, we had the 9,000 that we had to add in from the other number, so you add that before you start subtracting. So that actually, it should have been, there was another adjustment I made for a new hire, so that's why it was actually, was actually more than, it would have been adding the 9,000 to the number that we had last time, so basically 10 has already come out. And if you're not going to do anything with the deputy and you're going to limit, if you're not doing anything with hiring outside and you're not doing anything with restructuring the department, you probably could take another total of 10 out. Not 10 on the salary line, but basically 6 on the salary, 7 on the salary line and 3 on the benefit line, or something along those lines. But that's why there was a discussion in here tonight, are you restructuring the department or not?
Well, I guess
Because
nobody's really even had any conversation about that. That's the big pink elephant in the room that
Right.
we haven't even.
So how can
we
you
haven't
cut the
even-
budget until you make that decision?
I think that was what Dan was kind of alluding to before, was we have to have that conversation there as well.
I think Dan is right.
And then I'm kind of, too, I wasn't clear. I kind of just took the benefits of the thing, went to the town report, and I just guesstimated this. I can't get technical, but I just guesstimated that. my numbers. Well, I have further
Let me
questions
see
here.
what numbers went into the town report. Because
Did you see how it's 15? I'm sorry, say that again.
So from the 7 you were at with changing from November to now, with from the benefits and the wages, and then you add in the shift differential that was at, do you see how we got to 15 difference from November to now?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
This,
I guess
this
the-
new position, John,
Yes.
can you tell me the pay,
Works out to.
the range that you expect to pay it?
I would expect that to be 20% higher than the lieutenant's wage, which is 2781, 3539, so that it would be 2781, somewhere around 32, 33 to somewhere in the 40-something range per hour.
That wouldn't be a salary position?
Well, that's the discussion we need to have as part of it. That was a discussion that should be a salaried position. That we're still going around with the attorney on whether or not that would qualify under the Fair Labor Standards Act as a salaried position. I think it would because
course
it's
it would.
supervisory.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would.
Remove them from,
No, it
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it
would.
definitely would remove from the union, and I think it could be a salaried position.
which at $40 an hour would fund, that'd be 83.2 a year.
At the very top of the range, which right now is 73, so it would be, like I said, 20% higher than what the current range is, but it would start out at, what was the first number? 70,000. The deputy position would start out, depending upon where you were at, you'd start out in the 70s.
But 20% higher than 34.44 is essentially $40 and change already.
Yeah.
So that puts you
That's the top
above
of the scale.
83.
Right.
You said automatically it was going to be 20% higher than the,
Well, you create a new range that's 20% higher than what the lieutenant's range is. Which, you had the two numbers, it was,
it's still
42, 46, 47 is the top, and the bottom was, what is 2781 times 2, times 1.2, 37 to 42. That was the proposed 20%, it's up to the board what the range would be. So 33, 37 to 42, 47 in steps for a range.
Before you would expect us to create a range, wouldn't we be given some information on the ranges that currently exist?
We've got all of those in the book as far as what, in the department, the ranges are all part of that book I gave you. I can print another copy of it, but it's in the book. It looks like this. It's near the beginning where you do all the salary stuff, but I'll print this one off.
Well, I'll go back to my other question. I need to know what's gonna happen, all my questions and stuff, because then I restructure all my rough numbers.
what, I guess I haven't heard from the chief. And can you elaborate why we would want to go to a deputy chief position? I mean, nobody's really talked about what we think the advantage is, why we would do it, why we wouldn't do it, anything of that. So I wouldn't mind hearing from you why you have a desire to do that.
So I can train myself out of a job.
Is that the purpose?
Through succession planning, again, it's succession planning. And it's a non-union position. Right now, I'm the only one that's not union. That can't happen. We've muddled through under my predecessor, and we currently continue to muddle through. When we have an issue, and we do from time to time, that it puts supervision at a conflict of interest when there's an adversarial item that needs to be addressed, because they're in the same union. So they have no authority to take true action as a supervisor. And that's what it comes down to. So it's really that, it's succession planning, like has been done with the deputy county, the deputy town administrator.
So who is currently, would be in a supervisory position? Like what position in here aligns with the supervisory position? Is there any?
Yeah, there's a sergeant. So right now, that full-time line included in there is one sergeant and 2 lieutenants. One lieutenant, and it's been that same supervisory,
Sorry, John?
3 supervisors for decades. There's been no change in supervision in decades. There's only been allotted 3 supervisors. So for decades. So
For
in
how
there-
many?
10.5.
9, 8. There's 11 full-time, including me.
So if it's a
So there's
conflict-
7 to 3 supervision, yes? 3 people and 4 people in supervisory positions and 4 people that are in control positions.
Yeah, and the 1 full-time, there's a total of 12 of us. 11 full-time, 1 part-time. Is the staff.
So in my world and in also prior life of working with unions, you wouldn't have your supervisory people in a union position because of that conflict of interest.
Right.
So does it make sense that 2 lieutenants and a sergeant should not actually be lieutenants and a sergeant? They should be either in supervisory positions or we should be looking at actual capacity and what somebody is doing. Like what's your, typically you're going to supervise, you know, as a supervisor, it could be any number of employees. I mean, I've seen as high as 15 people under a supervisor, but in general, that is too many people from a standard supervisory role. So would it make more sense to say, look, we really should have 2 supervisors total plus a chief, and maybe one of those supervisors is being trained to become your replacement or groomed for that future role?
Right. So I'm not changing the number of supervisors, I'm not. I'm simply closing 1 lieutenant's position and trying to have a true second in command of the agency, to run the agency in my absence. That's what it is. And it has to be an executive leader to be able to remove that person from the union.
Yep.
So the number of supervisors won't change, even though we added an officer. Even though I'm coming next year to add another officer, we're down 4 on last year's numbers. You gave me 1, and I truly appreciate it. Next year I'm coming for another 1. That's still down 2 more, so I'm still not changing the number of supervisors. I'm just trying to make 1 a true second in command.
And down 4 is based on the Bartel,
The Bartel formula.
Formula.
Based on data, not feelings and emotions.
well, but Date also runs the other way on that too, so.
I've actually read that study.
So I'm not
I
changing
think
the,
it covers all issues, but I've read the study.
So, and I guess that's why, if I look at truly the role of a supervisor is to supervise, which means immediately when you have a supervisor who is a member of the union, it's already a conflict of interest.
yes.
Can I give a little history on this? The Fair Labor Standards tries very hard to get to enough people to make a union, which is 10. So they frequently combine what we would call a supervisor unless a couple of things happen. unless the person has disciplinary authority and has input into hiring and firing and has involvement in the collective bargaining unit. That's what makes a position that will be outside of the union. Fire departments frequently have lieutenants and everybody in the union, and the same thing happens in small departments. The PLRB, the Public Employee Relation Board, determined that the job descriptions which our sergeants and lieutenants had did not qualify them to be outside of the union. So therefore, they put them in the union and got the 10. What the chief is asking is to create a new position which does have the kind of authority that requires it to be separate from the union, which includes supervision, that includes discipline, and includes labor negotiation, and includes input into hiring. So that is what he's asking for, because you can't give those responsibilities to someone who's within the union, and the PLRB has certified that as the current structure that we have.
I get it, I'm just saying our current structure is broken.
I
That doesn't.
don't
that doesn't
disagree, and that's why
align
he's
with-
asking for a new structure.
But even the positions as they are don't align with what the responsibility should be within their scope.
Well, they align with the traditional union idea of sergeants and lieutenants that are within a bargaining unit, with the patrolmen. You're right, you don't have that much authority.
You can't have any really, because they have no say or control, which means there really is not a supervisor
Right.
in any sense
They,
of the word.
they can have some, they do have some, but you're right, they don't have as much as you want. Go ahead.
What I want to bring up before we go any further, so we all have a clear standing of the numbers. We have 4 supervisors. Supervisors are the chief, 2 lieutenants and a sergeant. And then we have 7 full-time FTEs, and we have 1 part-time FTE. And so when you turn around, if you want to call it, that's 8 and 4, but it's not really 8 and 4. But anyway, if you do that, each supervisor, excluding the chief, they supervise 2.33 people per day. I mean, you're chief, I want to go along with you, but when I take all these numbers, it still shows you have a lot of supervisory individuals as compared to the people that report to them. And so that's the part that, you know, when you take the dollar value to that, it's awful hard to sit here and say to you, you know, support it. You know, when you do it that way.
No, I understand that argument, and I appreciate it. I'm not here asking for another supervisor. I'm just asking to work with the amount of supervision that the agency's had for decades. And we're trying to cover 24/7. So it's really difficult to have officers with 2 years on the job respond to their first fatal accident with 0 supervision on site. We have to get away from that. So it can't be looked at as quantified, models that 2.3 can't deliver. Supervision needs to be on every shift. The things we're dealing with today, we didn't deal with 20, 30 years ago. We did, it was low on the totem pole. Right now, these officers have felony level investigations that are immense, that take months, that you typically see in the paper when somebody gets sentenced to 30, 40 years in an interstate prison. I'll share with you, we have 3 of those investigations going on today, with a staffing of, we could sit here, get the calculators out, we'd like to stay. I have 2 officers with 0 years experience. If everything goes right, I should have 3 officers, somebody should be taking notes. I'll have 3 officers with 2 years experience. So what's that, 5 officers with a collective of 2, 4, 6, I'll have 5 officers right there. half the department will have, run the average, Dan, 6 divided by 5 is 12.
Anyway, please,
That-
Chief.
That's what it is. So it used to be, I found a document from my predecessor that the average tenure of Barrington officer had 18 years experience. That's how we got through all those years. Now I'm running with lesser seniority and I need more supervision. That's what it is. I'm not even asking for that.
Yeah,
The
well,
only thing I'm asking for is just to have an executive leader to help you run the organization and to train your replacement.
But Chief, the way we look, if you look at this right now, that means that the deputy police chief would have to take a shift. Would he rotate through the shifts, or would he, because of his rank, would he stay on days to be the shift supervisor, and the lieutenant take one, and then the lowly sergeant gets stuck with that graveyard? Is that how that would work out? Because, you know, you talk about they need supervision, I understand that, but now the way it be set up is that we're taking the other lieutenant that just left. I know he had a shift at night, or they rotated to them, I'm not sure on that, but I know you got 3 of them. So what is that new deputy chief gonna do? Is he gonna take the shift, or is his shift gonna stay the days all the time and the other 2 just rotate?
It won't stay the days all the time. Number 9 of the job description is all other assigns. So like we've typically run, is the supervision is gonna fill the void. They're gonna fill it. So this person would, from time to time, work a midnight shift. Yes.
Select Person Hardikoff, thank you for your answers today. Select Person Hardikoff.
My question was, are you currently having your sergeants and lieutenants sit on your hiring board?
Through an oral board, type.
Yeah, are they
process.
sitting in on
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes.
Are they providing you with input when you're doing performance reviews annually?
Yes. They still. So
Sounds
the
like a man.
union, yeah, how do you get into a union for that? And there is.
And I want to understand, Chief, what value do you see in removing one of these people from the union? If they're already sitting on your oral boards, if they're already providing input as a supervisor when you're doing performance reviews and certainly impacting the people they're supervising, what purpose do you see in removing one of them from the collective bargaining process?
To have the ability to discipline and run the agency in my absence. Growth and development of staff. And a clear number 2 position right now, we don't have one.
Or do you have,
In my absence.
I don't expect you to answer this, but do you have a plan to exit your position? And
Yes.
Okay, then that is super helpful in making that decision. Thank you.
Dan, you got a question?
Well, the state will provide us with anything we needed. We had an intern before on transfer of 2 chiefs. And then this is actually more transparent for me and for the public. And then I need to know who's going to be moving up. So I look at my numbers, my notes, and figure out the money and stuff. Because whoever's moving up, there's going to be changes. They need department pay and stuff. And if they go to salary and stuff, and what the duties are. I have too many questions. Unless you want me to get all transparent right now, tell the public who you're moving up and how you plan on paying them.
Some of those, excuse, this thing I want.
I'm not asking, I'm not-
Some of these questions, the answers might involve a person's, an individual, and that will have to be, go in a non-public for that individual to be discussed. And I just caution you on how you phrase your questions. So I'm not
I
telling you
didn't
not
ask,
to.
but all my questions are in here. Look at everything moving up around. I need some answers. They can be more transparent, more to the point, for me to make a decision. If it's has to be done in non-public, So, Lee, but I cannot give you a vote without more information. It affects all my questions in your lines.
Do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, Tracy, please.
So, Chief, one of the huge barriers I see to making this decision and this change is you clearly have very seasoned people working in roles of leadership. The problem that I see with moving anyone internally to a salaried position is their loss of overtime. And I have seen time and time again throughout my career, when we have tried to put a plan like this in place and overtime was eliminated, we then eliminated our best internal candidate. So I would caution you on making this change prior to a plan of your exit, and probably would encourage the more informal mentorship that can take place oftentimes when someone is planning their next move of their professional life. So that's some of my comments from, HR experience.
And that has been taken into consideration and discussed.
My question to you is, how was your plan received by your department when you brought it up to them? When you notified them of what you'd like to do, what was their reaction to it?
We're going to go down like a personnel non-public with those types of, with that line of inquiry.
Thank you. Mr. Knapp?
I think he's, between Tracy's questions, Dan's questions, and just the feedback from the chief, that pretty much answers the questions that I had.
Okay.
So at this point, can I just finish in there? At this point, again,
Please.
that line is just basic math. It really is. And although this appears to come quick to the board and the public, it's been noted in my evaluation for, I think, the last 2 years. I've been your chief 3 years this month. So it's been in there that it was immediate apparent during my hiring process that, hang on, wait a minute. Every supervisor is in the union. How that happened. And again, it's what Administrator Street laid out is how that happens. So it's, I'm asking you to support it. That line is just math. It's what every person there makes today with an anticipated step in a COLA of 1%. And that's what it is. And what I came up with was 515. That's what I came up with.
Go ahead, please.
I think from my standpoint, I definitely don't disagree with the idea of having another person in a supervisory position. I think without having a non-public where we can actually have a bit more dialogue around this to get to some more pointed questions, I'm not comfortable with blindly approving it. I would want to have a much deeper conversation on that.
Can I make a suggestion where people are waiting to continue on the budget? I would suggest we leave the police salary lines until after we've had the non-public in that discussion and come back to it. Continue either with the police lines that are not salaried or go on to the fire department for the sake of keeping things moving forward. And then go into non-public at the end when people have left and finish this police personnel issue.
What we can do is,
Was at midnight.
going on with what John says, that we will just continue with the police right now, then we will continue with the rest of the budget, then we'll go into non-public, we'll discuss this issue, then we will come back out of non-public, at which time we will complete the police budget in public, and then we will adjourn from there.
I have general questions that will not relate to anything from the non-public, but the line items that can be addressed in the budget. I'd like to finish
If you just
that.
heard what I
I
said.
know, I'd like to finish this. What if, what if
We
the
are,
outcome?
we are
That's what we're
carrying
gonna
on,
do, Dan.
yeah.
All right.
We're not gonna do that, but what I'm asking you is, we will stop now with this, move on to the next one, so the other people that are here, then we'll come back, because a lot of the questions we require here are non-public. Once we make that decision, then we come back out, we will go back to the regular meeting, and then we will continue. Is that okay with the board?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So we're going under fire at this point.
That's
No.
it.
No, we're carrying on with
Okay,
police.
okay, yeah.
So 4154, earned time buyout, since our largest player, I believe, in that category is no longer here, is left, should that line be reduced?
So that was, he took that was most, a lot of that was sick time that he had accumulated and came out of personnel administration.
I knew there was a chunk of it there, but there's, I believe, also a portion that would fit in earned time buyout.
Correct. And some came out of the earned time buyout, which is why we're already over it. Let me see, year to date, we're not over or expended yet, but we're substantial.
Right, but now
I
that
don't
should
think-
come down.
Well, other people, I don't know what his utilization was in relationship to other people on an annual basis. This is based on an annual
Yep.
basis.
Again, that line is the most scariest in my budget, because you can't quantify the thing, like you can the full-time hourly line with people's, pay rates. So with that one, what I did is I had submitted a 3-year average, and it was $15,100 and change on a 3-year average. So what's happening is, I won't say we cannot. As long as we have an understanding, if that line goes over, or my budget goes over because that line is driven into the red, that we'll remember this conversation. And that if we have an incident or contingency fund that I continue to hear of, to cover it, I'm going to do that, because this line is high-stakes gambling. That's all it is. I give you, every year, I lay it out on my PowerPoint, and I think this is the one where the little police cop comes in, is maximum liability if every person were to take earn time. And that maximum liability coming in before one retirement was $38,000 and change.
Right.
And then I just go down, wow, what would happen if they 18 and change? And what's the 3-year average? The law of averages, can we try that? The law of averages was $15,100. Now one has left. And this could be the year where if I can hurry up and backfill that position, that I honestly don't see others leaving this year, going into 19. I think we're going to be solid. With that said, well, every year I'm down. That's why it's 430 that year. You don't need that much money. It's because I run vacancies, 2, 3. I think 19 we're going to be okay, and we're going to be actually fully staffed. If that happens and even one of the junior officers decides to buy out a little bit of time, it could equal the former lieutenant who retired. So I'm asking you to leave it alone. If you're inclined to go ahead and chop it, just please remember this discussion with some type of backup incident fund to help me if we find ourselves with a problem.
That's all I was trying to understand, was to
That's
get a
it.
little bit of explanation.
That one's the toughest one.
Dan?
On police legal, 11.5, did we swap something?
Yes,
So actually, we can take that off then.
that one, this is where I presented the budget and said, that can go to $1. And there's something with the auditors that although out of that line, I'm gonna spend 0. That one can be quantified this year. Nothing will be spent out of the $11,500 legal line, but because of some auditing rule, we have to show some type of revenue of equal value. And hopefully the town administrator, or the finance director, I'm sorry to put you folks on the spot, maybe they could explain that better than I cannot.
Yeah, it's called gross appropriation, Dan. In other words, we need to
I'm all set with
put
that.
11,500 in revenue and 11,500 here.
Well, theoretically, we can leave that right where it is, as in rental fund. in this budget. Right? We don't touch that.
It's already been offset with
Yeah.
your anticipated revenue, right?
Well, no, it's not, it's considered taxable, but you would then offset with the money you would trade off on that.
Yeah, you take your revenue off before you set your tax rate, so you're gonna reduce your amount you need for your tax rate by this 11,500.
So we can't cut that out though.
You can't cut it out of the budget because of the accounting rules.
Right. Okay, this is a question.
It's a good question, so.
And then my other question is, on the K-9, $2,500?
Yeah.
Where's the 5-6 grand if we buy a new one and train it? Would that be in there for the transparent?
If you'd like to put it in there, we appreciate that.
He didn't have it in his budget to start with.
Right, I'm just saying.
If you wanted to put it in, if you want to make a motion to put it in, we can consider that. You want it in?
No? I just want transparency.
Select person Hardikoff.
I think we heard that if the K-9 program were to continue, that they would need a $2,500 deposit and then another $2,500 to purchase the bucket
All right.
over the course of 2 years. So we would never want to fund $5,000 up front.
Well, this 25 is for food and vet bills.
No, I understand. I would suggest making a quick decision at some point that if you're going to continue the K-9 program, the dog is 10 years old, you would need to consider funding the $2,500. Certainly. Okay, moving on.
I have just one simple question for the chiefs. If you were fortunate enough to hire, we'll say, 3 officers that had 3 to 5 years service, is your budget so that you could accept them?
No.
Why would I apply if I couldn't get the job?
Again, at the 515 number that I told you is based on math, right?
Yep.
So if somebody were to leave in 2019 and I get a great candidate with a couple of years on, it's the chart, it's the scale, right, the matrix, and then, okay, 5 years experience, which I've been able to find, I can put them into a higher range and pay them more. And again, with the understanding that if you folks feel the need to cut that 527, if you're going to do that, that when I get a candidate, if somebody leaves next year and it's tough to plan for the future with staffing for a 2% unemployment rate, this is the most difficult I've ever seen in 24 years. And I've hired and fired a number of people. That if there's an incident fund or some way that I can come back and say, I've got a great candidate, a lower paying one left, but there's a great candidate that I have secured, I'd like to give a conditional job offer, I'd like to softly reserve that right to come back to the board and say, this is what we have, I need money. If you're inclined to reduce that line.
Select person Hardikoff.
Line number 014443, copier supplies, proposed reduction of $500 to the amount of $2,500, basing that upon the past 2 years' expenditures.
I think we already got that.
What happened, I'm sorry, I was writing in the amounts when they were agreed upon. Did we also cover line 014531?
31?
It was previously reduced 500.
So we're at 10.5 on that?
11,000.
11,500, we went to,
I was proposing to reduce it to 10,000.
Another 1,000?
$1,000. Again, based on the prior 2 years' expenditures.
So how much are you reducing it?
I was proposing to reduce it $1,000 to 10,000.
10,000.
And which line is that?
Line number 014531.
Education.
I have a question for the chief on that. I know we've been doing the PC patrol and have done some of them. Have we are we completely outfitted there at this point?
Yes. 10's tough, that one could bring me into the red. It could. That doesn't take into consideration, you know, we're already at 94.79 for this year, and we still got one December bill, you know, that'll be coming in. If we go to 10, that could potentially put me in the red.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his detailed report, it added up to 10,600 just for the monthly bills that he had from various places.
And that's without any potential increases in 2019, that's by vendors, not me.
350.
We have a discussion to reduce that line item to 10,000. Any further discussion on that line?
I would
Seeing no
suggest-
one,
I would suggest 500 at the most.
we have the, John's opinion on that, to go to 500, but we have 1,000 already. How do you want to handle it? Does somebody else want to make a change? Does the select person
I
Adcock want to
think
make
what
a
I just
change?
heard is that the expected bill would be $10,350, and I'd like to fund it at what we expect, $10,350.
So that'd be a
So
difference.
there's change now to go to
Reduction of
$10,350.
$650.
Is there any further discussion on going to 10,350?
I would suggest that about, in this case, following what John had said and going and reducing by 500, which gives you a very minimal buffer of, what, 175 bucks?
150.
150 bucks.
Easier math for me.
It's less about math and more about like, you don't want to completely kill the tree.
So 10.5.
Yep.
Any other further discussion? Now we're at 10.5. Go on here, 10.6. Seeing none, all those in favor of 10, I see it down there. All those in, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 10.5. So any other further discussion on 10?
01-4754, police equipment, what is that? Bob around?
Yes.
01-4754, $8,000 police equipment, what is that?
The easy way to look at that one is that's the electronic equipment line. That was well detailed in the report that was submitted.
8,309, so if I would take 12,000.
Are we cut too tight on that?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I'm just trying, again, I'm trying to stay in line with what has been allocated. And next year, that line, I expect to double, if not triple, with the installation of cameras. Right now, I'm currently set up a camera study committee for the police department. We're going with body cams or we're going with dash cams, but in 2020, my goal is that the police department will be fully outfitted with a camera that's currently in study.
I was trying to figure out what it was.
With, I think a general statement, I'm not sure.
Go ahead, I'll let you.
Just be careful on, I'm asking you to be careful to not turn me into a spender. What we're doing is we're going down, we're getting such bottom dollar, and we're going off of what you spent last year. So that seems to be the MO of the board. So I'm asking you to be careful in doing that. Because I am conservative and I am fiscally responsible. I turn back the money every year. I'm a bottom line budget. I can spend, drive a line into the red without oversight. And it's very transparent, but that's law. Under RSA 105, you can only terminate me if I overspend my budget. I intend on giving back about 6 digits this year. Because it's all in benefits and it's all in hourly salary, and we've been running short. And higher paying people have left. And I feel with lower. Many people in political roles have told me you've got to zero it out. It's use it or lose it, or they take it away. I refuse to believe that. My belief is I'll ask for something, and if you see value in it, you give it me. If I tell you I need it, you'll give it me. If I say I want it, then you have to kind of think about it. That's how I've operated for 3 years. And clear that the forefathers and my mentors have proven to be true. So I'm asking you, please be careful and don't turn me into a spender. I don't believe in that way of government. So be careful, please.
Thank you, Chief.
I actually had a push. I was actually going to push the board, knowing what we're looking at from a camera standpoint. I agree with the chief that this is low. I actually had that item and 4652 as being low as well, which was uniforms, and knowing the turnover in officers. I know that's been a challenge for us as well. We can come back to that one. So with equipment, I was actually thinking it should be upped by $1,000.
Next year is a tough year.
Right, but knowing we're at 8,300 already, does it put us in a poor position for 2019? Okay.
I can live with $8,000 this year, going into 19 I can, and it's gonna get everything that I think we need. Remember, out of this line, if I wanna buy that radar unit, radar trailer is $15,000 to $18,000. The unit I wanna buy, $3,200. That's gonna save all my traffic data collection and radar enforceability for data collection. Then it's the electronic evidence that we need to be keeping, through a barcode scanner system. Again, in the report that I made, I try to do my budget with as much detail and not much background. And if you really look at it, I spend so much time going line by line, to get to a bottom dollar. If I can scrub $500 or $10,000, I will. That line was $18,000 and 17 to do the electronic door key system. And again, we came into this year and we immediately removed it, and I did. You didn't have to tell me to do it. So that's how I can move things forward.
I guess that's why I was
Thank you,
concerned.
this is a question.
Like, you brought it in under budget, but
Just
you
a minute.
didn't want a lot of system. Knowing that we're looking at body cameras and items like that, I'm just worried that we're knowing what we've been focused on from a technology and electronic end, and also the fact that you brought up going to a more secure control mechanism for the evidence collection and evidence room, which is something you had talked to the technology committee about as well. Are we putting ourselves again in a short spot?
No, so and I'm going to bring it to the tech committee for final approval. For 2019, I've created a study group internally. The supervisor, actually he's a former supervisor, he's the former chief of the town of Stratford. So he's the point person, but he's now an officer. So it's him and two other officers that I set up a camera committee to study it, to take, we have about 7, 8, 9 months before I got to submit the 2019 budget. And then, so that would give them 7 to 8 months to study cameras with vendors. Do we go body cam or do we go dash cam? They're going to drive that decision, the data. And I know that there's companies out there that will give us like a free demo, a free trial, like they do with Patrol DC, the MVPs and the cruisers. That for 30 days, take this camera system, we're going to have to make sure we have a good policy in place to guard against it and comply with the law. And we'll be able to run free trials. To then, I can come to you in August or September on my submission deadline and give it to you broken out by hopefully a good firm quote from the vendor that we intend to vet internally. And then once I get the report from the camera committee, my goal, I will submit it to the tech committee that I'm on. And we can roundhouse it at the tech committee. I talked to Rockport today, Eric was in.
Yep.
What we're doing to make sure that what we do technology-wise for 2019, we have to let Rockport know, and I did, that cameras are coming So I don't want to spend money internally only to say, half the time you did cameras, now we gotta redo this and waste taxpayer dollars. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure the money that we spend moving forward can integrate with the camera system we roll out in 2020.
Yep, I'm good if he's comfortable.
Is there any more questions on the police?
Second, the other one that I had was the 4652 that I was, uniforms I felt was also low. If I look at the year trend on it, we're running.
Again, it's low, and I'm not a spender. And if people stay, that is, it's more of a maintenance line. You know, it's shirts and pants, when you skin their knees from rolling around with people, right? It's those things, it's things that wear out, it's boots, you know, the price of goes up. If people stay and not go to other departments, then we'll be okay, and that 6,500 should cover it. It's just I can't build it to fund, okay, if 2 or 3 people leave, then it's a brand new bulletproof vest, because those gotta be specifically sized for the officer. And I'm not there yet. I can't quite hire an officer of the same stature. I'm hoping to get there, and everything would fit, and everything's only 4 or 5 months or a year old, and 6,500 would be okay. in that line.
You want to raise them?
I'm gonna take the chief's advice on it and leave it as is.
Any other questions for the police department, other than going down public and coming back out?
Moving on, after me or now?
After. We're not gonna destroy these people here, though.
Thank you.
We've already kept it, what do you mean, thank you, they've been here long enough. Moving on, we're gonna suspend the police, move on to fire EMS. Is there any questions for fire EMS?
Oh, no good. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah.
42, well, 01443, the vehicle maintenance. I feel that can go back $5,000, $10,000, $5 over.
We just voted at the last meeting to go to that because of the last 3-year
Right.
average has been $18,000.
But all the work that's been done to that other ambulance, it should be all set for a
But
while.
this is not just ambulance money, it's for all the equipment. All the other equipment's gotten a year older. We've said this. Anyway, so he wants to turn around and lower it down again then. That's how people feel.
44.3. Vehicle maintenance.
We had the recommendation from the ABC board to raise that up because it wasn't funded with enough money. Or using the last 3-year average. So instead of being the last 3 average, it was 18 and change.
So that is, as a secondary ambulance, it's not going to be primary stuff, it should not, nobody need more. That, if you look at all the bills, that's what sucked up most of them,
Further discussion.
last 3 years.
So what do you want to do, Dan?
I threw it out there.
What?
Take, raise it 500, make it 10 grand. Take out 5.
All right, we have that, wants to knock 5,000 off, we raised it, 5,500 the last time, so we're gonna take 5 out of it. The ABC is recommending to us to do that there, so what is the board's pleasure? How many want to turn around and change that 15 to 10? I'll take a voice vote, Bailey, nay.
Which may we discuss the
Burn
burn
off, yay.
I didn't remember this.
I'm just throwing it out there.
No, how do you vote, sir? It's your vote, yes or no?
It's already 4 to 1, so I don't need to vote.
So it's 4-0, Dan doesn't vote, anyway, it'll stay the way it is. Any other line item, please, for fire department?
I had a question on.
Please, go ahead.
Well, I guess it's more of it's my position on something. We had talked about the change from the stipend to the part-time hourly, and again, I don't think my position has changed on that I don't support doing that because the rates that have been chosen are not rates that we set as a board or with that actually even any board oversight. I'm just not on board with doing that until, like, there's been a complete rate setting involved in that that follows some structure.
Well, at this point, what we're asking the Department of Labor is to clarify some questions. So until that happens, I don't see anything in here that needs to change at this point.
Because didn't that significantly change some of the, it did change the part-time hourly wages in there, as well as a couple other lines, I believe, the per diem.
There's about 1,000 more for the part-time hourly than for the stipend, but Chief, you know, it's from
That line doesn't, the per diem line and the EMS on-call line are not affected by the rates. Them rates are for the call firefighters, that firefighters and EMTs that come into what respond as needed on an emergency basis. And that line originally went up $10,000. I suggested last week to take $4,000 out of it and have a $6,000 increase. And again, with the current point system that we operate on, for the majority of the people, the average, the point value, the hourly rate and the point value would stay the same. Where it would change and increases the people that have supervisory roles. The problem with the system that we operate right now is that the people that are supervisors are getting the same rate as the individuals that are being supervised because of the way the system is. And so, again, while I don't anticipate using that entire $6,000 increase, I have to have something in there because I don't know. This line is all dependent on the number of emergencies we have in a year and the number of people, firefighters and EMTs, that will turn out to respond to that emergency. So really, all we're looking to do in that line is to reward the people for having more certifications and supervisory, as opposed to it's the same rate, it doesn't matter where you are. And again, there is no effect on the per diem line. This has no effect on the per diem line or the on-call line. As Administrator Kruger said, I would just ask that you would fund the line at wherever it is that you intend to fund the line, and we're working on coming back and answering the questions as to making sure that, again, we're looking to make sure that we're operating the way we're supposed to be operating.
Does that answer your question? Or anything else with it? Okay. Dan?
Chief, just for a question.
No, excuse me. What's the item first?
Relax.
I am relaxed.
No,
Follow the rules.
531, this is for informational purposes.
No, yeah,
Otherwise, I'll walk out of here. And we'll go have a conversation in the hallway.
we can do that also.
But you just better understand that line.
I don't destroy it.
I don't do that either.
I don't do it.
Which line are we talking about? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
The 0143515 EMS A and B contract
Oh,
billing.
okay, EMS ambulance contract billing. So,
Is that production agency?
no, so what that, yes, part of that goes to we have to gross budget our company that does our billing for us. So we have to gross budget that number. They get a percentage of what they collect for us. So it's based on the income side of it, but part of that, again, we have to gross budget what they charge, 5.5% of whatever they collect. So that's where part of that is. The other part of it is that when we bring paramedic intercept in from the primary departments that we use on Frisbee, McGregor, and Dover, they all charge a rate to come out and assist us in the transport, not from a not from a mutual aid ambulance, but if we ask for a paramedic intercept for better care for the patient, they bill us individually for use.
Thank you, that's good enough. I was just looking across this, I was just trying to figure it out.
That number is grossly underspent because we budgeted last year for Frisbee, was gonna start billing us last year, and they made an internal decision not to start till this year.
Thank you for the information.
Any other questions? No other questions on the fire department?
No?
So with that, move on to building inspection. Thank you, Chief. Questions on the building inspection? Dan?
Well, it's probably more directed to John Shrew. The hourly rate, how things are moving around and stuff. I had a problem following all this. Big increase. I know that's the other thing, but there's information on how.
Okay, if you look at the hourly rate is now the full-time. So that now consists of two people. It consists of John Huckins and it consists of Amanda Noyes, who has newly been moved to full-time. She had been budgeted under the part-time line along with the assistant building inspector. So the assistant building inspector and the AA were together that 49. Well, that came out when she went full-time, but by the same token, we took money out of finance administration where the other half of this position was. So all of the position for the building AA now comes out of here. The money was reduced in the finance administration, so the net increase was in the $7,000 range as the board understood when they agreed to make it full-time. So that there was a reduction in finance administration. It does not show as quite as full reduction as you might expect because you increased assessing by 10 and there was a change of census related to health insurance for another position. But there was, as predicted, about a 7,000 net saving, a net cost going full-time over the two part-time positions. They're all budgeted in the 4111 number for full-time hourly, John and the AA.
Thank you.
Any other questions, please? The building inspection?
Line item 0145, 80 under mileage and expenses at $500. Let's propose a reduction of $400 down to $100 on that.
Further discussion?
Can we have a discussion by with John Huckins because
So,
of,
John, please.
I know sometimes they have to use their own vehicles because we have two people and only one vehicle.
It's not just because of the overlap if we have to both go out. Last year when the car was down, we had to use our own vehicles for, I think it was like 3 weeks. And then this past year, we've had a couple of times we've had to use our own vehicles. So I guess I'm in the same, I'm feeling the same way as Bob was when he was up here talking. We put our budget together to figure what it's going to cost to run our stuff and make sure stuff works. You cut the budget down, and then if we go over, we're supposed to find the money. And then you say, well, we have a contingency, but you cut the contingency too. So there's a point to where you can't just keep cutting and cutting and cutting and expecting everything to work. So we need, I mean, if I go over, where am I supposed to get the money? If the car breaks down, are we supposed to say we're not going to do inspections, we're not going to use our vehicles? I mean, we tried to put our best number forward. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, that's the reason why you asked us to bring the budget forward.
John, let me ask you a question. On your total money that's used so far, my records indicate it's only $95. that you spent last year on mileage.
this past year, but we didn't have the issue. It was the issue from the year before. But we don't know what's gonna happen next year. So we're supposed to come up with a budget that's realistic and usable, and that's what we tried to do. And I think what you're doing is you're looking at, like Bob said, we didn't use the money, we were frugal, we tried to make things work, and all of a sudden now it's like, okay, now you don't have it to fall back on, so next year I go over, when I go over next year, am I gonna be called to the carpet because, well, you spent more than you got budgeted for, even though I thought I brought forward a reasonable budget? I mean, that's, I'm watching everybody else in front of me, and I'm feeling frustrated, not only for them, but for myself.
I think in all fairness, I mean, if we're sitting here talking about cutting.
You're cutting $100 here and $50 there, I mean, it's getting to the point where it's kind of ridiculous.
You didn't really let me finish. I was gonna say, I don't think we can really hold you fully accountable for the fact that your budget is under in that case. If that's what happens, then we have to own responsibility as well as the board because we're making these decisions.
Okay, and then my next year's budget is gonna be based on how things went good this year. So am I gonna have that every year going forward, that no matter what, if I go over, then it's not my fault? I mean, that's the position you're putting us in. That's what I'm trying to make the point of.
Can I ask, this shows 0 for 2017 because we created a new line. Where did you take the mileage out of in 17?
I took it out of the vehicle thing, and the vehicle line went way over last year because of the repairs plus the mileage that we had to take.
Okay, so that's where it is, that's why see, it looks like 0 when you look at it, but I know it was in a different line.
Yeah, we went way over what we asked for this last year.
So last year, the mileage was way over, but it doesn't show here because we created a new line for mileage for building.
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that when you look at the line.
I remember the pain of that car being down for, and we've grown, like, we did the uniforms and everything else, because you guys were ripping.
Well, we go into with our own vehicle, it's like, who are you, why are you here? I mean,
And you were ruining your own stuff going around inspections, that was, I remember doing all that.
This one right here.
Right, did you see that on the front page there, 4432, on year 17, it was 2182 that was up there, that's all. So that's what was over by 800.
I think the overall budget for this department has increased over 19%. I don't think that anyone's being unreasonable by proposing small cuts.
I wasn't affirming that, I was just trying to show where the money was on that particular line item.
In fairness of that 19%, a lot of it came from what we moved from finance administration and the combined position of all being in building. But that's just,
No, that's why I asked for information, I didn't ask for a cutter, I didn't better understand by simple brain, verify it.
Any other comments on the building, please?
Did they make any decision on the mileage?
No, we haven't. Let's do this. Thank you, John. All right. Tracy, you'd like to have it reduced by, I forgot, that's why I'm asking.
Right. You said 400 to 100.
Right.
I haven't mind either.
But in fairness, we were testimony that wasn't corrective, maybe we should just split it. Because it was not accurately done. The breakdowns up. Would you consider splitting that?
Anybody have a comment? So we're going to say yea or nay to put this line item to $250.
Oh, I thought you said 400 to 100.
No, they were changed, John.
What is it going?
It's going to be changed by $250. It's going to go to 250.
250 to 250.
No, 500 to 250.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a vote, yes, I'm looking for a vote.
Yeah, right.
Bailey, nay. 3 to 2, it carries. Anything else to discuss on buildings? there's nothing else on buildings, they will move on to.
Actually,
Please.
Chairperson Bailey, the postage line at $200.
John, please, go ahead.
Yeah, that's another one that varies by year to year. This past year, I had a minimal amount of zoning violations, so I didn't have to do as many mailings and sending the stuff out with the certified mail and the regular mail that we've had in the past. I don't know what next year's gonna be. It's gonna be another one of them ones, if you cut it back, I won't have enough money, because if you look at some of our past mailing costs.
Any other question while John's up there? Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
So the proposal that I had made was to reduce that.
all right, proposal is reduce that by $100. We'll take a vote. Bailey, nay?
Cash may.
I would like to make one comment, and that comment is, we've been at this a long time, we're very tired. I absolutely respect our department heads and what they have put into this budget. Please respect our position as fiduciary agents for the residents of the town. And although it's getting late, I'm going to ask that we don't lose our steam as a board, and we have just appropriately made changes to all of the departments at the very beginning of this budget list. And as we lose steam, we don't make changes simply because we've lost that energy. Thank you.
That's our Red Bull.
Now we're
I'm
moving
glad
on.
you drink your Red Bull Select person here. I could use a cup of coffee myself.
Board wish to have another recess? Then who would pay for it?
Oh, for crying out loud, I'll pay for it. Jeez, cup of coffee?
Moving on to the highway department.
Okay, so did we do anything with that budget?
Yes,
Not
we
that
did.
line, not that line.
No, mileage went from
No, it did not.
500 to 250.
Yeah, and the other one didn't pass.
Okay.
And then the mileage went, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
No, we had 3 days, there was no point in voting.
All right.
We already got a consensus.
We have moved on now, please, to Highway Streets Administration. We have any comments?
I needed to ask if line item 014431, the $40,000 included the fire alarms.
No.
That's a different budget.
No, it did not include the fire alarms.
Okay.
So if we're on 4431, I had a suggestion to reduce that line because we had, in 2+ years, really, actually even going back farther than that, we haven't done a great job at using that line. And we keep talking about those items, these items, they come up year after year after year, but then we don't do anything.
Could we have Peter speak to the plan?
Please,
for the
Peter.
Which we did?
4431, highway maintenance.
Building maintenance, we just got, the guy just came for the roof the other day. That, once again, that's not my door, I'm not doing it. You know, we've got a yard that needs desperate repair, it's gonna look like the town hall before long, if we will do something to it. If it's easier and cheaper to repair than it is to replace. That's why I kept it.
So what is in here, roof and paving?
Roofing, paving is 80 grand. That's one, that line, you know, has it.
I would never recommend repaving until we actually look at the layout of that yard and make sure that it's laid out in the most efficient way that it can be.
It is efficient, it's very efficient the way it is.
Dan?
My understanding, if I read that, I would assume there'd be pavement in it on the maintenance itself. And we have established the paved road lines, wouldn't that go under that? that roof out. Did you get a quote on the roof yet?
The guy was there Friday. He had a call Friday. I haven't got anything from him yet.
And then salt shed, has that been repaired yet? Salt shed, has that been repaired yet? I understand what Andy said, well, I know nothing's been done, there's a lot of projects, so.
My only concern is we haven't been acting on these projects.
Select person Hardikoff.
I guess my question for Peter is line item 014731, does it impact, so you have building improvements and you have building maintenance?
Building maintenance was something that was added last year. We had building improvements.
Okay.
We had building maintenance last year, that's why building improvements should be probably on in there.
So the 20,000 under building improvements should actually be sitting
That
under
started
building
out-
maintenance?
That started out as a warrant article.
Yep.
I wanted to start a capital reserve fund to do improvements to the building, or additions, or whatever. I wanted to start it out to 20 grand, and we decided, or John decided that he'd move it into that line and do away with the warrant article.
So we don't actually have a plan for the 20,000, Peter?
No, I was trying to start a warrant article, is what I was trying to do.
But we do have the expenditures out of that though.
Well, the same warrant article that we're talking about for the police station was, it's worded, I believe, town buildings, so it would apply to these as well. So maybe what you should do is take the 20 out of here and put more into the warrant article. But you gotta be careful because the warrant article is so large to the voters, if it goes down, then you can't do the police station or any of the other words you want to.
No, it'll be more transparent, it's up to me. I think it'd be better for the common person.
What else do you plan on using with that 40,000, Peter?
As I stated, we were talking
Roof and
about,
Roof and lawn.
the roof, the fuel thing, we're dealing with the fuel now. As far as adding on to the fuel thing, we found out that we're not, we're trying to get licenses, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Is there any other discussion from the board on that line item of the building maintenance?
I think we remove it's more confusing for me personally.
Any other comments?
What said, I'm sorry.
It seems like it's a double line to me. It's confusing.
Right, building maintenance and highway building improvement. I don't disagree with Dan on that. It is, you're spending you have 60,000 budgeted for it, and it's spread out over 2 lines to shorten it up, and you don't spend enough in either.
So one of the things that occurs to me is before you put a $15,000 fire system in, shouldn't the roof be
Oh, this is totally different building.
different building?
Yeah.
Okay,
Both.
okay.
This is where the building plan actually is worthwhile.
Well, there's $60,000 in building money sitting there,
No, but this is for the highway garage. Yeah, that money.
Okay, maybe I'm at a loss here. Isn't that where the trucks are parked that we talked about protecting with the alarm?
Yeah, so you want to take that, change that then?
The building where the trucks are parked, one of the buildings which we want to alarm is only 4 years old and is in very good shape. The other building was built by the highway crew probably 35 years ago. And is that the building you want the roof on? No. So that's the other one.
Fuel storage, the fuel storage.
So
that's just separate buildings.
We just did the.
So there's 3 buildings.
Oh, there's 5, 6 buildings.
Okay. So the one that needs the roof wouldn't impact our spending on the alarm
Correct.
system. That's all I need to know, thank you.
thinking about that, the other building, where the recycling is, should probably also be an alarm building, because if you were gonna have a fire with the dumpsters and containers for
Packers.
recycling, then that place would go up like a candle.
The
So,
only one we've ever had burned is the transfer station.
what's that?
The only one we've ever had burned is the transfer station.
Right, no, I remember that one smoldering as well.
We had it, no, it was before
Yeah,
you
good
were
one.
here, oh yeah, burnt it down.
Well, I remember earlier this year, there was.
That's, we're gonna get into that,
No,
that's
this
in the other budget.
this was the very first building with the trash is. Oh yeah, they wiped it right out.
Is the 60,000 enough to do the roof?
Yeah.
The 40 and the 20, is the 60,000 enough to do the roof? It's not enough to do the lawn, is it
Yeah.
enough to do the roof?
It's enough to do the roof, not enough to do the yard or the fuel.
How the salt shed?
Enough to get on.
The salt shed.
The salt shed we did, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
No, but the kids, I thought.
Oh, here, no, once again, we want the guy to come back and give me a quote. I don't know what needs to be done. I mean,
Well-
we're at the mercy of that people who, I went through this with the truck. You know, I went down there, told them what I needed, and, 2 weeks later, I still didn't have what I needed. I mean, I can't, I call them. But, I mean, short of, having them like that and saying, hey, can you give me a price, there's not much you can do.
There's two questions this. I think we should combine the lines and zero that one out, or cut it or something with it. It's too confusing for me.
What's the purpose of it, John?
The two lines,
Yes.
like he indicated, one of them was he wanted to start putting money aside for building improvements as a separate account, so that's why we put it separate, but.
But it has to be used every year, finish.
What I
I
was
don't have any
doing,
problem with
I shouldn't have
finding
done
it.
it, but what I was doing was I was trying to plan ahead. 10 years from now, we're gonna need another building. And I thought, if we started a fund, we could work our way to, rather than come in and say, hey, we want a new building and it's gonna be 1.2 million, come in and say, hey, we got, 700,000 and it's gonna be 1.2 million. This would be the year to do it. Well, I mean, I ain't gonna tell you, I ain't gonna lie to you, we're already outgrown the new building. I mean, we don't have enough room in there to keep all the trucks in that we got.
And what I told him was, with this year, with everything that's going on with articles, I didn't think we ought to put another article in to start a new fund for the highway. So that's why I said, well, I'm willing to put it in the budget. You've got a valid need for it, but I didn't want to start a new fund this year, given everything else going on.
The only problem is that just rolls it into the general fund if you don't end up using
Right.
it. It doesn't do anything to
Right.
preserve or protect what Peter is
Right, I agree.
out for.
Dan?
So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, you can't generate that as a regular account, revolving, what are they called? Revolving.
You're talking about it.
Well, there's several, there's revolving revenue funds, and there is capital reserves, and there's expendable trusts, so that you have several different ways of funding projects.
I say we got it 20 grand.
yeah, so, Peter, do you anticipate the roof costing more than 40,000?
No.
Okay, so I would think that the best course of action is fund the roof this year, fund the yard next year, remove the 20,000 from the budget this year.
Is that building improvement?
Yes.
Want to do it?
4731.
So, have a vote on that, please? Or is
Yeah,
there any
right.
further- Excuse me, is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, take a vote.
Error, I.
Hardikoff, aye.
Bailey, aye.
Okay, so I'm leaving the maintenance line alone, removing the building improvements line out, and next year, try for the yard.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to discuss with the highway department?
Yeah, paved roads,
No, excuse me, please, wait till we get there.
oh yeah. This is small stuff, how you,
We're still on the highway streets administration part right now, we haven't moved down yet.
The 4311 group.
Is there any more discussion on that section?
yeah,
Communications.
yeah, now your communications in uniform.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take communications first.
So my only question was why the large increase, and by large I just mean percentage-wise, not dollar-wise? Are we expecting a larger bill on communications this year? We changed contract, or-
I got prices on radios,
Yeah,
and then we decided that we weren't gonna replace the radios.
okay,
We're just gonna replace the 3 vehicles that didn't have the
Okay.
radios. That being the backhoe, the new one-ton, and backup truck.
so it's needed. Okay, thank you, Denise.
Then,
And then two out of the 3 have been installed. They're supposed to come back. It's either next week or the week after they're installed on the pickup truck. And that's, I think the total was somewhere around 5,000.
I was assuming on the safety equipment uniform line that Select Person Air brought up that because 2 years ago you had spent a large amount on equipment and uniforms, this year not a lot, that you're expecting the cycle next year you will need a significant
The
amount.
reason 2 years ago is because we bought new vests and new chaps for cutting saws and that type of thing. When the chaps run out, we have to replace them. This year, I expect to, on 2018 to 2019, I expect to get new vests because what happens is they get all dirty and ripped, and once they get ripped, they really ain't much good.
Okay.
Now, are you removing the building improvements, 4731? I know you had that, they were talking that and the 40, so that's going to be taken right out.
Yep, the 20,000 at the bottom line. is
Yeah,
coming out.
okay. Just wanted to be sure.
So we're, highway equipment rental, we're over. Looks like,
We're probably not gonna be over come the end of the year. We purchase ordered for November, and once the snow hit, we didn't get to use the piece, we sent it back. So I expect it's probably somewhere, I wanna say be close to 2, 3 under.
It's good news, good news. Any further discussion, please? Seeing none, we'll move on to roads and walkways. Questions on the road and walkways? Dan Ayers.
there's 49,000 left over for the warrant article from payment last year. We carry that over, where does that go?
No, that was a new line that was added last year. That line is for working on the paved roads. That wasn't established just for paving. That was for
Right.
stuff like this out here, ditching and poles and coal patch and that type of thing. That was a new line last year.
The board wanted it separated, so.
Yeah, but on the warrant article,
Oh, the warrant article is for, was for $100,000.
well, how's that worded?
It's non-lapsing, meaning if they don't spend it this year, they get to spend it next year.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we carry over, we had that in the budget.
You can't add it to the budget, we have that to expend next year.
Right.
And we have every year carried something
What we did
over.
this year was when we started paving, we started right with the paved roads to 600.
Yeah.
You fully
Used
expended
it
it.
up, yeah, we expended that, and then we went to warrant article to make up the difference.
Right, so I can put +4, so in the perfect world, we made 649 plus the 110, whatever. Thank you.
So Peter, with the, as Dan just mentioned, 4435 for 110, you showed you expended 60,475. Is that correct?
Say it again.
That's
On the-
not a paving line, that's a paved road, he was explaining, that was like ditching.
That's a new line that was established last year for ditching, culverts, quick, stuff like that. Because Andy mentioned it, that we didn't have anything, everything was coming out of paved lines, paved roads. We were doing
Martel's
ditching,
everything.
culverts, everything was coming out of paved roads. They wanted to separate it so we'd have a line for paved roads, and that was just for pavement. Peter and the budget committee was doing that too. They wanted just a separate line for nothing but pavement, and then that line is to fix washouts and that type of thing.
But right now, you show an expenditure of only spending
Yes.
60,000.
I
So is
don't- I
there
don't-
more money that's going to be billed to that?
Probably not this year, no. Being a new line, we just didn't get to it. I could be wrong. almost, it was all the line. Because I was looking at this the other day and I'm like, paved lines, paved roads, paving for roads, and I'm like, I got too many paving lines.
No.
It should be just simple. The answer to your question is probably not, because it's probably maybe, I guess you patch the buy, so maybe another $500-600, but I ain't gonna use that all
All
this
right.
year.
You have something?
Well, my next question was, I know, I don't know,
You have questions, please?
mine was made for informational, or that's that money, where to put it, where it's gonna go for next year on the budget. Where you gonna take it out, that money, you sure you have surplus, that it's gonna get carried over next year. As is one where,
For what line item? For the, for the
He already
the warrant
explained-
article?
Yeah, no, he already explained
Okay.
it.
All right. Select person Hart.
014350, Peter. There's a $6,000 increase over. Yeah, did our mowing contracts go up on road maintenance contracts?
No, that's the lease on the wall, we have a lease on the wall.
Yeah.
That goes until 2020.
That's just,
And then we have the other thing that comes out of that line is my tree removal, dead tree removals.
okay.
I am going to be expending that line. I'm scheduled for January 10th up on Old Settlers Road.
Okay.
We got a crane coming in because we have to crane the trees out that we're making a turnaround.
Okay.
Because currently we turn around and
That's the one on Richland.
watch the driveway.
No,
Old
No,
Settlers
it's Old
Way.
Settlers, it's West Bailey.
where the golf course is, the golf, build a golf course.
North River Lake, up around North River Lake. How about Marty Hardy? You know Marty Hardy used to live right across the street.
Green,
Did I not mention I don't know anyone in this particular town? So, sorry. And then my one other question was 034435, the gravel road upgrades. Could we fund it at 20,000, not 30?
Gravel roads,
Yes.
4435, that's just used for on dirt roads.
Yes.
We have approximately 10 miles. This year we did less grading, and we did more roadside mowing, because I only had one operator. Now I've got 3 operators because I got the class.
So you have a plan?
So next year, in the spring and in the fall, we're going to build up those gravel roads.
Okay.
I think the other question was gravel for the road updates, which is the next line for 30. We use that on shoulder material on new roads. We use that when we do grinding to add to the base. And this year here, we're going to do more grinding than we did last year. Last year was just basically shooting overlays and weight courses.
Just to circle back to the 4435, which is that paved road, so we use 60. Is it reasonable to think we'll get to 110, or is like 75 more like what would be a norm in there for us?
I mean, if you wanted to do 75, I got no problem with that because it's a new line. It's something that we gotta do. You know, worst case scenario, we're gonna use it all up and have to increase it next year.
Right.
That's the worst case scenario.
Right.
I mean, to
Maybe we
me,
don't even go that far. It's 85, but a better number.
I mean, I'd be happy with 85. I could settle for 85. I mean, that would, I think we could do what we need to do.
Does anybody object to that on the board?
So that's 01, you need to specify because there are 3 different.
Right, I find that very confusing.
01-4435, reducing 25,000 to 85. Is that, what's the consensus on
Does
that?
anybody object? 85 it is.
So what's the difference?
25.
Oh, the 4435, there's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
Is there any way to make it more?
No, but the reason for that, they each
I
have a
know.
different, you have to look at all 10 digits in the 03, the 01, 02, 03. Just like in executive, they specify different category within the roads, but they're all similar function.
All right.
It's an accounting thing.
I know.
Any further discussions on road and bridge? Walkways? I think we'll move on. Thank you, Peter.
Well, you've got
All right.
yeah.
Bridges,
We got bridges.
And transfer.
I'm making the recommendation to the board to up the bridges by 5,000 because we consistently overspend that one.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Anybody opposed? So we'll go to 15. Next is transfer station. Any questions on transfer station? Select person Hardikoff.
014651 is, are the operating supplies completely offset by the purchase of the trash bag? Under the transfer station, is $25,000 line.
That's where we buy our garbage bags, paper bags and stuff out, we place 2 orders a year, place them next rate on the phone.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. Could we get away with 22,000?
That's money that's recycled.
Sometimes the bag order doesn't get filled. We order bags and then they just don't make them and don't sell them to us. So
Okay.
they order bags anticipating how many we're gonna need, but then it's, the company turns around and kind of says you get what you get.
Interesting, okay.
If you
And
wanna open a business, open a printed
trash bag, printed
business.
trash
Yes.
bag business.
Because there's no
I hate to
competition
cut
for
it,
it.
we do get occasionally, I should say, because when we order, we usually get 4 or 5 boxes, cases that are really good, and we have to ship them back.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I like to have them on hand.
There needs to be a buffer, gotcha, okay.
We had a big problem with that last year where I
Yeah.
know a lot of people were, myself included, I was duct taping my trash bag around the
They were
trash
bad.
bag because they were just pulling
Okay,
out.
but in answer to your other question, we collected 112,000 in revenue so far for trash bags.
That's just bags, we still got, I don't know what you got for bulk and electric.
Right, but she was relating the cost of the bags to what the income
Well,
is.
given that I want to plan our Earth Day, we'll just
We
get
got
those bags
another whole,
right there.
we've already got, we've got upstairs another whole set of free bags for that.
Yahoo!
I mean, that was given to us.
Do anything to get the roadside.
That was given to us by the state.
Great.
Big one, small one. I want to say last year, we had 10 boxes.
Good.
Dan?
Did we jump ahead? Did we go to $5,000?
On the bridges? Yeah, we did, we voted.
Yeah, you increased it by
Everybody
5.
agreed, yeah.
We're tired.
I know, I don't remember going to Iowa.
We're just
Is
tired.
there any other questions on the transfer station?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll close the discussion. We'll go to transfer station waste disposal.
This one's unusual since we just don't know.
This is what I
We
just-
don't, that's how this whole one is.
I just had a comment on this. that This is a great spot for us to utilize like a good 5S process and get like some lead management around that. As to how we organize it and how it runs.
The only other thing I would say too with the electronics removal is there are opportunities now for, that many people don't know about. I personally this year did not know that you can go to Staples and have your laptop shredded. So,
Yeah, but that's something, if you're gonna do that, that's something that we do, it's not nothing we do.
no, I know, but I was thinking we could take the time to advertise on your site that that's a possibility and reduce some of the cost.
And
Sure,
then,
fee for that? Okay. Dan, you had a comment?
if we're going to look, I think we need to look at that transfer station actually, so before we do any paving, if we have to put conduit in the ground, put it in the ground, and then pave over it. If we never use it, at least it's in the ground for any future expansions or whatever. Lights, run computer, if all the buildings get computerized, for communications and stuff.
I think before we do that, I think I'd worry about generator to when the transfer station and the power goes up.
Well, that's another thing, we have to run conduit for the power on there, I would like to see all that done before we pave it, and then cut into it.
There's a lot of conduit on the ground over there already, just because of the neighborhood. You have
Oh, whoa, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Any further discussion of transfer station rates? Seeing none, we'll go to other town dams. Entertaining questions on town dams?
I think I just had a note on that one to reduce it by 500, which would put it at 10,000 based on what we've spent for the last several years. We haven't spent significant money in that line.
We have that kind of money.
Not dams.
Goodwill Richardson.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know, if you remember, I think it was last year, there was discussion on who was actually gonna take control or who was gonna pay for the Goodwill Dam
Yep.
and the repairs to that. We were gonna worry about swings, and I don't think there was ever a vote taken as who was gonna repair it. I know I go up there, I cut the brush, I clean up the culverts and stuff, the dam and beater stuff, but I don't think the board ever legitimately took a vote on whether to give it to
Conservation
them.
truly should own that. Considering
Well,
it's
They do own it.
is a conservation property, it's their responsibility to own that dam.
Any other questions on town dams?
Yes.
Dan?
There's a John Porter email that's work does everything I do it next year ends up with the Pam. And then, only problem is Southeast Land Trust has a title to that too. More than, on that piece of property. Richardson Goodwill. They're the management of that, not the conservation. They're named on that, Southeast Land Trust.
I thought it was,
Yeah, I thought that was donated.
Conservation Commission.
We'll check into that, Dan.
I'm pretty sure.
The easement was that, but the agreement was for that easement that the town would keep that dam maintained. Conservation.
Right.
That they
I
own
mean, it needs
the
work,
easement.
I ain't gonna lie, I mean, it needs some concrete work.
Well, you
The
somehow.
trees cut, it needs, it needs actually probably flags on the top there, which is been, totally broken. So it does, it needs some stuff, but it's not desperately out of shape.
John, you have a comment?
Yeah, the email that Dan's referring to from Pam indicated she was gonna ask the highway department to do some cutting, which I assume we can help with. I thought that if there was major work needed that was going to start running expensive, that was a conservation project.
Yep, I agree. This is part of where I push back on the sense that everybody asks for Peter and his crew to do this stuff, which takes away from their time to focus on the stuff that they need to focus on, and Peter bears the brunt of that with listening to us talk about what isn't getting done.
Plus the expenses.
Right, plus the expenses, and time again, that's what I've been saying for a couple of years, is I disagree with that practice. Whether it's like building picnic tables or digging out things around the dam, I don't agree with it because
Not budget.
it's not even that it's a budgeted item, it's that it fundamentally takes away from Peter and his crew being able to do the job we asked them to do. And they do it anyway without complaint or argument or anything else. Sorry, Tara.
Anything else on dams?
Moving on, we'll go to Health Department. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Any questions on the Health Department expenditures?
No.
Seeing none, I'll move on to General Assistance. Any questions on General Assistance?
I just had one under zero, can I go all the way down to the third section of it, 014831, general assistance, food, rent, and utilities. It looks like, given the way the economy is right now and the 2% unemployment rate in the state of New Hampshire, that we've had year-to-date expenditures of just below 20,000. Why would we fund that at double that amount?
Yeah, it's, I mean, the
I was
history.
thinking 30 would still provide a nice strong buffer, should our residents need support from a human service perspective.
Well, there are projections of recession coming in the following year or the next year.
I would say that's true, but probably not. The impact of that, from my experience in human services, would be that the impact would be,
2020.
yeah.
Or 2020.
But
So-
2017, we went at 40, and I know past years before that, we were up over 100 back in the depths of the
2004,
recession.
2008.
Wow.
So this has been significantly reduced. I don't have a problem with cutting it from 40 to 30, as long as you keep some money in the Institute fund, just in case of the recession.
30 would be, and I think, appropriate funding for next year. I do think the following year, John, you're correct, you will see an increase.
Anybody opposed to that? Seeing none cares, go to 30,000. Any more questions on the general assistance? Seeing none, we'll move to the rec department. Before we go to the rec department, I want everybody to understand that the rec department gave notice that the recreation mileage is changing from 1509 to 1124. Before we started discussions, that was put in there. Now we're at the rec department. Does anybody have any questions? Dan?
I feel it should go back to 500, and then, the money, come out of the revolving fund.
You want a mileage item?
Yeah, I think it should go back to 500. Like it was in the past.
I think they've worked out a good plan as far as.
I'm just throwing out there,
deposits
going back
go,
to-
1124 is a reasonable number.
I don't think that should go down anymore, but that's my opinion on that one.
I just threw it out there.
I know you did, and I'm glad you did. Is there any other discussion on the mileage item? Does anybody want to go and change the mileage item as recommended by Dan? Okay, we'll move on.
Anything else in rec?
Yeah, Tracy?
I have one question in rec, 014754, the $500 for equipment. I was wondering why the equipment wasn't coming out of the revolving fund that the rec department needs.
Didn't we talk about that last time, being furniture?
$500 worth of furniture?
Yeah, some of the things we talked about, yes.
That's the equipment?
Would you please come up to Tara?
I would support some real tables because my son banged his head repeatedly off the table
At least
in
5
Sarah's
times.
office,
At least 5 times.
which is a piece of plywood.
We do suffer with plywood tape desks. However, we did in the last week and a half buy 2 brand new office chairs for I think it was like $403 or $430, something like that. So we did have some office turnover. We did need to buy some new chairs for our office staff.
So this $500 in equipment is actually furniture?
Let's double check. Tell me the line item, I got you.
Sure, it's 014754.
The last one.
Yep. Desk, chairs, keyboards, and my mouse.
Okay.
So we did buy 2 office chairs. We intend to do that at the end of the year.
Well, for the sake of Andy's son and his bruised head, let's expend the money on the table.
Was that a conflict of interest here?
I don't know, I was thinking he should just like protect his kid from
The tables that
wandering.
he's referring to, Tracy, are our desks.
I
That are
understand.
plywood.
I understand. I fully understand now. I was thinking it was like soccer ball or something, and I was
No.
thinking, why are we funding that under this? Okay, moving on. Sorry, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions for the rec department? Andy?
It's nothing like that. I just overhauled a bunch of offices and I heaved a dumpster full of desks. And
I'm not sure why you didn't think of that.
I know I didn't think of it, but I actually, we're going to be doing some others, so I will make sure I touch base with you
That would be awesome.
beforehand.
Tara, call Lynn Chocolate, they're redoing their office space too. I'm sure they'll help you.
We miss Casey and all the Lindt chocolate.
I don't, we still get it.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Dan, you have a comment?
No, I'm ready to move on though.
Pardon?
I'm ready to move on, Mark.
Any other questions on the record? Thank you very much, Tara. Sorry you waited so long. Next item is the library. Any question on the library, Dan?
01-4560, library conference and training, I thought that was 1675 and back here. Is that corrected?
See that line again, I didn't get the right.
Library conference and training, I thought it went up to 1675.
Conferences and training.
4562.
At 4560? I thought they got that she made a mistake.
I mean,
Can we have, yeah, could we have Lindsay speak for us?
Thank you, Lindsay.
Sure. So Melissa is actually homesick. She was supposed to be here tonight to answer these questions. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come. I can check back on my phone for the emails, but I believe the 16 was the one that was wrong, if I'm remembering. And it's supposed to be what you corrected it to the, what was it, 14 or something?
1370.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Okay.
I'm almost positive, but I will double check.
I think I had an email
Yes,
from her
you did.
to make that change.
That's not a question I have.
I believe it was at 1675 and then it went down to 1375. Any other questions?
Here's one of the handouts that they have where it says 1375 for 4560.
Any other questions on the library?
No.
See, and then we go to patriotic purposes. Dollar, anybody have any questions on that? Thank you. Debt service, long-term bonds. Can't do much with that, but it's there. Dan?
What did we talk about the town hall one?
Keeps coming up
It's
later.
coming up later.
Is this the school debt service?
No, this is the conservation bond, it's all paid off. We just paid it all
Right,
right.
right, yeah, we paid it, I remember, yes, I was,
That's why it's in 18 and paid in 18.
yeah, and it's zeroed out for $1 in 1990. I just wasn't reading far enough.
Interest, moving on. Interest on the TAN, any questions? Seeing none. TAN operating expenditures, total operating expenditures, I'll skip that. We have land, roads warrant article for $100,000.
This is the paving article.
Paving article, yes, thank you, John.
And what happens is we moved it down to other improvements, if you notice, about,
It's 4452, 4909-02-445.
yes, that's where it went.
All right, next item then is buildings. Anybody have any questions on the buildings? Here we are, we have the fire safety.
Hold on.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Hold on.
I am not going anywhere. We have the fire safety storage building, we have the town hall design, we have the library building, we have the town hall lawn. Opening up for discussion.
So the town hall design, do you want both the design money and where you were planning to do design build, the bond in there, or were you planning to take that design money out?
I would take it out.
Okay. Is that a consensus from the board? To take out the 50,000 and leave the 1.9 million in?
Take out the 50, yeah. I want to explain the 1.9.
Well,
So I have been approached by someone who has discussed the possibility of us putting forth, instead of a $1.9 million town hall bill, sorry guys, I'm really tired, that we propose to go ahead with the design and consider waiting another year on the town hall. And I feel it necessary to at least honor this person's request and bring that before the board again.
well, I think also on that same lines here, I have to agree there, I also had received numerous calls asking us to consider the library and also to consider not putting the 1.9 out there, so we would give the public a chance to have more of a honest, and this is not my words, an honest try at that and not turn around and try to confuse them by having them turn around and select the lesser of two Aprils, being between 4 million and 1 million, and the change that comes with both of them. So I have to kind of agree with you on that, what you're saying.
So our dilemma with this is, it's quite likely that a town hall bill would end up being cost neutral. Our dilemma is losing the opportunity with that land, so we would have to ensure that possibility. I think the other, so some of my concerns are there hasn't been an actual survey done where we don't really know if either project is something that people would support. I'm definitely, I want the library to go before the residents of this town, and I can certainly understand why that would happen this year. I will understand that it will happen for 3 years. I think that it's very easy to support a project for infrastructure. The hard part for me and what I'm struggling with is paying the rent, the uncertainty of the town hall and the rent that goes with it. In no way do I want to interfere with the library's project.
I agree with you, and that's why I was considered, because the offer we have for the land, if everybody remembers this, that we need to get a commitment within the next 2 years for design build for 50,000 we're looking for. And I think that's one way of ensuring that we have us to go forward. We give the library the opportunity to go before the voters, and we always have the next year after we figure out how it's going to work out, or what type of building we look at. I think design build, as you had said earlier, is the way to go, and I said yes, but in order to ensure we have the land.
Yeah. So I struggle with this. So, and my struggle with this is twofold. Interest rates are rising; they will continue to rise. It is highly likely, given, I don't know about the rest of you, but how the stock market's performing right now, that we are headed to a recession. And that would mean for us that even if we postpone this year, based on what's happening in the economy, we might as well say it will fail. So I'm struggling with this. I think, from being a proper fiduciary agent, we have to figure out how to stop renting. And this opportunity is in front of us for that. It is terribly unfortunate that the opportunity came about at the same time as the library bill. I'm struggling with it. I'm definitely struggling with it. Do I hope that the residents of the town look at the numbers and realize that there's just truly very little impact over the long term in putting the infrastructure in place in this town based on the growth that we're experiencing? I do hope that happens. I don't know, I have to leave it up to the collective board to make this decision, and I'm struggling with it.
The other thing that we have to look at is that we went for the public, we, the past boards, for 2 renovations, 2 design build, and they turned down. I just think that, I just have to agree with the way you put it, sir. Mrs. Hatch, right, done.
I have been approached about it too, and I think I've said several times that I could be very worried to try to present 2 bonds one time. Even though the town is a smaller one, it's still 2 bonds. And I think that we all tried to make the library realize that they did have the support of the town. And maybe we didn't represent it right, but I agree with both of you that I don't think this is the time to do the bond.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying I'm struggling with it being the right time for the town hall and it coinciding at the same time as being the right time for the library. And if I could do anything, it would be to stand up and say, invest in this town. But I also understand that it is the residents that will decide on this.
Dan, please, I'm sorry for the delay, but please.
All right. I think personally, I spent a lot of time on this. I'm not going against the library, but we put a bond in for town hall, 1.9. We don't have to spend it, we can lock in. We spend it in a couple of years, just to lock everything in. And we take 8.8 out of fund balance and finance 1.1 out of that bond. At 64 grand, will be level funded. There'll be no additional impact to taxpayers in the town over 15 years. So, and to do more math, so I can prove it, it can happen. We can be level funds, there'll be no, so we'll have two big projects. Once the town hall, and go to the new town hall, there'll be no additional cost to taxpayers. So the only tax raise will be the library, the pizzas, or whatever you want to call it. So we're not going against each other, it's gonna happen. If we get locked in now, at a good rate, we're not gonna jump in ahead of you to do it. We'll take time, a year or two, maybe, at least. But we need, it's gonna happen. So we have to come to a mutual agreement. We get a good rate right now, I think we should.
It's unfortunate that the $700,000 that was requested last year for the town hall as a non-lapsing fund failed to pass, because if it had, it would have made a much easier path to go forward with. That being said,
Reduced to zero.
well, yeah, I can't remember what happened, but it failed.
No, it was 40 town-owned lands.
No,
It
so
failed.
it deliberative, the proposal was for the purchase of the TD Bank building
Okay.
plus a renovation.
That got reduced.
Which got reduced to 1. We reworded it to put 750,000 away toward a building, but they added a condition onto it that it had to be built here on Ramsdale.
No, it was town land.
Or on town lands, yeah, on
Town
town
land.
lands. Thank you for correcting me. And that was what ended up failing.
Right, so
That vote.
it's unfortunate that that failed. What I'm suggesting as a middle ground that the board may want to think about is putting in again $750,000 or some number towards a capital reserve, establish a capital reserve for the town hall and fire station and highway garage, or for several buildings, and start putting money in as a way of investing in the future, buying down what the future bond is going to cost, and making it clear that in 2020, the town will be coming in, but they're not going, see, if the town puts in a bond, the two bonds go first. If you put in a request to use fund balance, it doesn't go ahead of the bond. The library would be first, and this would be later in the warrant. It's just a thought as a way that instead of going for a bond, you go for either a capital reserve that would cover just the town hall, or a capital reserve that would cover the town hall, but not put restrictions on like the last time that prevented some of the options that were going to be cost effective. That's just a thought.
Which if there was some,
Would the person providing the land extend us past the 2-year mark if we got the residents' support for, say, $750,000 to be used for future building of the town hall within 5 years?
Well, you'd have to get, you're going to have 3 bites at town meeting if you put one in 19, one in 20, one in 21 to start construction. by the summer of 20, by the summer of 21.
And with
So
that,
you could put 3 750s would be over 2 million. And it would be adequate. You might even be able to start when you get the 1.5 million down for some of the building with a plan for future, you know, I mean, there are ways in which you sequentially build depending upon how you did it. But that's just an alternative. I do agree fully with you, this is not a zero-sum game, as you mentioned last time. I thought that was a great point. We need several things being done, and to say we have to wait on all the rest while we do one of them, I think, is not fair to the taxpayers. We need to keep a number of projects going forward. As Peter has expressed, we're going to need to put money into the highway department before long. We already know that we've got issues down the road for police and public safety, and the rec needs more stuff. So I think that we can't stand still for 3 years while we take 3 bites at the apple with the library. As far as it needs to be, we need to persuade the voters. I like the way you put it, that the residents should invest in the town for infrastructure. And Dan's point, if you had the 750, you could buy down the bond so the bond didn't come to any more than what the rent is.
right, and that's, I guess, I would love to be able to present this. If we are going to go ahead with this, and again, with what we expect with economic changes and rates, I feel that responsibility to bring it forward. I struggle with that because I absolutely understand the emotions tied to the work on the library. I do. I think the hard part is knowing that the town hall is not going to cost anything. That if we do this correctly, then we will actually, in our own way, be investing in ourselves and costing taxpayers nothing.
Right.
And that is what I'm struggling with.
Costing them no addition.
Right.
Right? And potentially.
And then we have a 50-year plan for the police too, on this law.
Let's not muddy this. Let's just focus on what we've got in front of us.
The argument I have made for 2 years about that, we could do this without creating additional tax impacts.
There might be an initial tax impact, but in the long run, there would be savings because you would stop paying rent after the building was complete and paid for that you currently are going to pay forever on.
I would guesstimate we've probably paid off the building that you're in.
Oh, I think we bought the building for the owner.
Yes.
I'm
How
pretty sure
very
that-
nice of us.
I know we did.
And literally crazy for a town to have done that, and I'm not calling anything crazy. I'm just saying the concept of it is unwise.
Knowing when that building was initially, not initially, but when it was bought by the current owner, and how much we've paid them in rent, we have paid them more in rent than they paid for that building. And we pay the taxes on it.
Right.
But we're very good at that.
All right. Keith?
So the whole room in the library, we're not working against you. We got 3 big dilemmas and stuff, and we're gonna try to pull it all off and not kill the residents. Thank you.
Well,
So,
we're at the point of making a change. What change would the board like to make?
I'd like to remove the $50,000 line item. I do not want to pay for one more architectural design.
We've already paid over $220,000 already.
can I suggest
Oh,
you
God,
rename
don't.
the $50,000 line to the Town Building Preservation Capital Reserve Fund? In other words, this is the contribution you would be making to the town, to the town building preservation line that would help do the police station renovation.
And then we form a committee, okay?
Is that what we were short on that?
Didn't we already adjust that one?
No, we didn't, no, we were gonna put it into the,
That's why.
Sorry, that was like 3 hours ago.
That was all the way to the end, we were gonna do that, and we got in.
Okay.
All right, so,
Yeah, no, I had written down that we want to put 50,000
Okay.
into that fund. So if that's, let's just rename it.
all right, so.
I'll make a motion to rename the line to the Town Hall, or
No, no,
Town
no.
Building Preservation Fund,
Yep, capital reserve.
Capital Reserve
Capital
Fund.
Reserve. I'll second that.
I-
We are renaming the line item to
Yes,
the,
sir.
as suggested. So we have a motion, we have a second. We have any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a vote.
Yeah, right.
Hardikoff, aye.
Okay, okay,
Stand by.
fairly aye. 4-1,
For the 50,000 for the renovation of the
to
town station.
be renamed.
We rename
Oh,
it.
just to rename it?
Just to
Yeah,
rename
no,
it.
no.
But you're not, are you
Use it
get,
for the police station.
We're renaming the budget line so that it now goes towards the police station instead of.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part of it.
Oh, okay, so now you're voting
I changed over,
yes?
yes.
Okay.
I apologize.
Now. Can we do a motion on the 750?
On the town hall bond. I would request that we remove that 1.9 million bond.
And we change it to 750?
And that'll come next after we get that done.
I'll second your removal.
Any further discussion?
I'm really hesitant.
I am
That's a
right
wise
with you.
choice, Chairperson,
I don't think you're really, you're talking about removing and talking about creating a 750 bond, but I don't think we've really even kind of isolated what are we looking to accomplish? If it's just to put money away, is it to put money away and go at this 2 years from now, or is it to actually like put forth the design building?
I thought that what I had suggested would be that you put 750 aside 3 years in a row with a plan to put it towards the design build on that site, which would be donated as land, accept that plan, and, you know, start paying for some preparation, the site plan, even doing some of the work out there on the site.
So you're saying 2.25?
Well, that would, you might not even,
Yeah.
you might not need that. The last one, you might have a much smaller bond, or you might even do it after two.
Hold on.
Not bond, you never have a bond, it's always
Right. You are using
appropriated money.
appropriated money.
Well, you might finish it on two.
Tracy?
I think select person.
All right.
Or do you go for the
I
bond?
saw
I
Tim.
think you could get it done.
Dan?
On that revenue and stuff, on this sheet,
Fund balance.
it's fund balance. I see a trend every 3 years of it being high. Is there any reason for that?
So, how do you mean, which column are you looking at?
Far right one, far right one.
The net change after fund balance?
Yeah.
Always more.
Are you talking the top half of the chart or the bottom half of the chart?
The right column,
Right. Top half or bottom half?
all the way up, all the way down, all the way down.
Are you looking at the ones above the middle or below the middle? Are you looking at this group or this group? They're two different sets of, the numbers mean different things in the two parts. Which part are you talking about? Up here?
See all the highlighted ones?
Okay. Well, I can't speak for the two that were in 2004 and 2005 because that was before I was here. The one in 2011 was an audit adjustment, and the one in 2016 was an audit adjustment that created the fund being so large. In particular, the one in 2016, the reason the fund balance was so high that year, which is why, that the auditor realized that we had set aside money for some of the revolving funds, paid them, but not released the money that was being set aside. So it was showing on our sheet, on our general ledger incorrectly. So that was an audit adjustment. So those are, that, it's not a cycle so much as those were two audit adjustments that were made that resulted in the fund being high in those 2 years.
All right, this is like, I don't know why, this is like a trend.
It's
So
not
we
a
audited
trend.
that 2 years?
One was 2011, one was 2016. I think that if you look at the amount that we have a target for the general public. In the fund balance, DRA gives you a couple of different ranges, and the Board of Selectmen try to stay within the range that DRA recommends for fund balance, which is 8% to 17%. The Board of Selectmen try to hit the midpoint of that range in terms of financial stability, in terms of having enough money for cash flow, and in case of an emergency need. For 2018, after we set the tax rate, that midpoint was $3,683,126. The midpoint is actually $787,000 below the amount that we actually have. Last year, we were going to put that $750,000 towards the building, which would have put us back to the midpoint. But as of the end, after the setting the tax rate, we had that money left, which is why I was suggesting it might be something you would use for fund balance for a particular project. We're going to add to that fund balance at year end. The capital reserve accounts that we regularly put money towards, a couple of them in CIP are not adequately funded. Highway in particular, we're not setting aside enough, so maybe we need to increase the amount that we put aside. We may want to, as the board has just done, put $50,000 into its town building. Paul Sanders, who does the overall maintenance, has been recommending that we do that. We're doing it this year primarily so that we're sure we have enough money for the police station renovations, but we should do it going forward. In the past, there has, for example, they had to replace a boiler at the old building before I arrived, and that was a crisis that they needed money for, and that's why this kind of a fund was established. A roof, like the school does it, and when they had to replace, it was a very expensive roof on one of the buildings. They had money that they'd set aside because capital reserves is the way you save money. So what the town has been doing is taking money from the general fund balance, which is the total amount you have, and putting it into dedicated accounts that are held by the trustees of the trust fund for future use. And so in answer to what Dan's question was, we are over the targeted amount by right now by $787,000. After the books close at year end, we expect to have some excess revenue over and above what we use to set the taxes and pay the tax bill, as well as some unexpended appropriations that will increase that and enable us to use funds from fund balance for the highway truck, the fire truck, the radio communication, the building renovation, and bridges. And that's been what traditionally we put money aside for out of that fund. Does that answer your question, Dan?
Yeah.
So back to the discussion about the town hall.
Town hall, yes, we are.
So of the 1.9, we subtracted the 787,872 sitting in this fund that can be utilized. It literally brings the town hall in at almost exactly what you're paying annually in rent and loss of taxes on the property. So I'm back to the conundrum of if you don't bring it forward this year and the economy does what we expect it to, which is takes a dip, and bond rates increase, that will no longer be the case, and the ship will have sailed and you may have lost that opportunity. I think this board needs to decide, are you willing to lose that opportunity at a time where the possibility may exist to to actually accomplish a build with no impact to the taxpayers. And that's the difficult part of this. On the chance that we're gonna get a 60% response from the library, which I hope we do. And that's really our question tonight.
Further comments? Dan?
I'll go up there down the street, but basically, by doing this, we can get walked in, we won't do anything to fight against the library, but we can prove on paper that we level funded, so there'll be no additional burden. And we have opportunity for future growth too. And I tell you right now, if someone gave us a town hall up there, there's a lot of people in town who have a lot of hate where it came down and stuff. I support the library up there at Ramsdale, and I support the rec. The library and the rec should be the campus. Town hall, I feel it's not go up there. We have a good opportunity, and we need to take advantage of it. Thank you.
I've always supported town hall. I've already got 2 strikes against me on that one, 2 years running, so. But I continue to support the fact that we need a town hall, and I think it can be done without creating additional tax burden to the taxpayers in this town. And I've said that and supported that since I got here, and I'll continue to say the same thing.
Okay, what would you like to do? Let's have a motion, or let's have a suggestion.
I don't know how to word
I'm not going to get on that.
I don't know how to word it. How do you word saying I want to figure out how to fund this so it doesn't cost taxpayers money?
I don't.
That I want.
I do have.
Go ahead.
I
Please.
don't know if we have to solve this tonight. I feel like we're 5 hours into a meeting and trying to come up with a right answer, and I don't know if anybody's clear enough at this point, and I can definitely tell you I'm not, because I know my morning started early, and I know that many other people in this town started even earlier than I did, so.
Can I make a suggestion? And that
Please.
is to approve the bond engagement letter, to approve going to public hearing on the $1.9 million bond, to approve the library going to public hearing on a $4 million, 424,876 appropriation, of which 3.9 is from the bond, and set that for the bond, and set the budget as adjusted here for the public hearing, and we can work on those numbers between then and now.
I agree with that.
Yes. The one other thing I'd ask though, John, one thing I have always felt is lacking going into these elections is, well, not just transparency, and I don't want to call it a marketing plan, but if we want this library, and I think we do, and if we want this town hall, and I know we do, I think we have a responsibility to do dual marketing on this and explain to the taxpayers why they need to stop saying no to everything. And, you know, I did the calculation that was given to me, and over the course of 15 years, the library will cost my household a whopping $2,000. And I know that sounds like a lot, but over 15 years, it is not. And it is needed, and it is necessary, and it does nothing else other than make this community that much more valuable. We are the one area of New Hampshire that is continuing to see increases in real estate sales. And if we invest in this town, we do nothing more than make our own properties valuable. That's all I have.
I agree with you on this dual petitions up. The library, you understand, we're not against it, we'll support you and stuff, with the opportunities that we have to deal with. And we show the taxpayers, so if we offset ours, they're not looking at 2 impacts. They can understand
We have
that.
to market it to people so they understand it.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Can I, if I may, George, we have several other warrant articles here. Did you want to go down through the rest of the list of warrant articles and then set everything to public hearing?
There are standard, aren't there? I think
Yes.
there's standard annual amounts.
There's several items that I want to discuss, and that's down in the transfers to capital reserve fund. And I just have some requests for you to consider so we can turn around and make these changes so that we can do it, because we have been told by our department heads that some of these costs are going to come forward in the next 2 to 3 years. Some are going to come forward as far as 6 years out. And I think that we need to look at changing the amount that we're putting in to these, so we can at least have the money when the time comes at the end. If need be, we can turn around and pick another time to finish this meeting, and we can pull out of the budget piece and do several of the other items that we have people here waiting for, and then come back and finish the budget. But we have to have it done in such a manner that we can make the presentation in January.
When could you hold?
Your first one.
I would hold the meeting if anybody wants to do it right now.
No, but what I'm saying is, if there is a time frame, you gotta be within that time frame.
Yeah, we do. We're going to make a presentation on January 7th to the public. And there's no reason why, that's the date we have to make. And if we can turn around and hold another meeting ourselves and finish the budget out piece there, and then we would have it ready for the January 7th, which is the first thing that we have to do. Other than that, we're available to do other things.
We've got 9 items left. Why don't we just finish them and then we'll have to meet again?
I would like to do that.
All right. So we are at the point that we have removed the 50,000.
Well, you renamed it.
You renamed
It's gonna
it.
get renumbered as well.
Right, so that's there. We've made the notice on the change to the library.
The library will have a new number in there. They'll have the gross number, which is not all bond.
And so then we have the, we want to rename the town bond, or you want to leave it there? What do you want to do with it? That's the stumbling point we're at right now. We have talked 6 ways to highway on that. It's time to fix the direction we want
Again,
to
I
go.
don't know what wording I'm supposed to use to propose pulling the funds.
Well, I think if you put your thoughts out, I'm sure that John can turn around and put the legal terms to it for us.
I would suggest you just leave it 1.9 for a bond and we can adjust it downward at the January 7th meeting.
Right.
That's how you want to handle it.
Yep, I would agree.
All right.
If you're doing that to this, that one, why not do it to them all?
Well, there's a question on, I believe what George wants to bring up is that the communication upgrade, we need to be putting more money aside in it, and perhaps the highway equipment, we need to be putting more money aside. So we would like to look at increasing those 2 lines, am I correct?
That's correct. Is that acceptable for me to cover for you, please?
So
Oh.
what percentage?
Well, using this, that's the reason why I asked to have the CPI handed out to everybody. And the first part I want to cover on the CPI is the highway equipment. Right now, we're setting aside $60,000, and the estimated time this equipment was going to would meet its full use is in 6 years. That's $420,000. I am asking, and in order to pay for all of these items in 6 years, we come up $670,000 short. So, my advice to everybody is that we turn around and change the highway equipment from 60,000 to 90,000, and that would bring us up to 540,000, and we'd still be short, but we would have more money for this board to decide on how we could turn around and replace these 10 pieces, well, actually not 10 pieces, the 7 pieces of equipment that are coming due in 6 years, according to the CPI. And either way we look at it, even if we only replace 2 or 3, we're still gonna be short the amount of money. Over the years, it was put in there, and the boards before us put in 60, and last year I put in 60, so I'm part of that faction, so I'm just asking that we put that to 90,000, build some more funds. Dan was first, please, I'll get to you.
Well, first of all, I complained to, well, John, everyone, I need more time to really think about this, calculate it. And then we also have the tricentennial coming up too, we should address.
And that's in,
Does it?
that's later.
Right.
Now, the line item I'm talking about now is 014751. I'm asking everybody to consider now that this information
That's a big jump.
was handed out several weeks ago by Marcia when she came for the presentation to us and gave it, so we've had, as far as I can see, a lot of time to consider it. That's what I'm asking everybody to. And if it's not something you want to do, just.
What are the other ones that you'd like to change?
The other one I want to do is the communications.
See the total, and what would that increase?
Communications, I'd like to raise that to $75,000. The reason for it is that when the fire chief made his presentation, he had told us it would be in the 3 to 4 year time frame that we would have to do this money for the communications. And if we went to $75,000 and inside of 3 years, we'd have $275,000, which gives us roughly the figures he gave us, $3,000 to $4,000 more than what is needed. And that's one of the reasons why that's the only two that I'm asking to have changed.
3 years at 75, be 225.
Yeah.
And what does he need for that?
I think it was 272,000, what it spoke to 300,000, correct? Or am I wrong?
160?
Okay, so that gets us there, then at 75.
Okay. So you're proposing 55,000.
Just my commentary on it is, I think one thing you gotta be careful of is, you go to 90,000 of highway equipment, you may not get it passed there. Where if you go to 75, I think 75 people are comfortable with, and you would get 75 passed there because, and we're still using prior fund balance, so prior tax revenue. I think if you did that with highway and you did the same thing maybe with communication, so you went to 75 and 75, so a difference of 40,000.
Well, to be honest with you, I was really looking to go with 100,000, and somebody said to me, you put 100,000, you'd be dead on arrival.
I think
So that's what,
90 is pretty close to dead.
Andy's correct
Yeah.
in this approach.
Might not make
would you consider 80?
No.
No, I would,
Okay.
75 would be my,
All right.
If I may, we met with the radio company, we're supposed to get the numbers that we need for the first of the year on the infrastructure upgrade, and whether or not we can do our piece of it ahead of the other communities. If I may take a chance and go on a limb right now, I might suggest that we leave the communication capital reserve at 50,000 this year. Take the $10,000 equipment capital reserve, leave that there also, because I believe if, without reading the warrant article, but I believe if you go back and look at it, you folks would have the ability to purchase radios out of the equipment capital reserve should we need to do that. So I think that if we can stay on track with the $50,000, we can get potentially get the infrastructure upgrade done, and then though it would not be ideal, we could do radios piecemeal. Obviously, you want to try to have everybody using all the same radios, but I think we could at least move that as a piecemeal operation if we had to, and with a number of things that we're asking the voters to look at expenditure-wise this year. Myself included, at some point you sit there and go, okay, this has got to stop. There's only so much money in the pot. Though I appreciate and hate to stand here and say, don't give me more money, you probably never give me something that I think we can work in a direction. I think leaving the communication alone, and certainly if you came back and thought it made sense to remove the 10,000 for this year, we could do that. Thank you.
Andy is recommended to move to 25 if you can. Who's up?
You may not.
Yeah, moving equipment capital reserve, highway equipment capital reserve to 75
From 60.
from 60.
Yeah.
And moving the communications to 75?
I would hold off on that based on the chief's comment. Would it make, just, chief, would it make sense to up the, the fire rescue capital equipment to 20?
I think there's somewhere in the area of about $28,000 in that line right now, so if we left it at 10 and the voters approved it, that put 40 in there. I think there's about 105,000 in the communication we have reserved right now. Assuming the voters would support 50, we're going to be sitting on close to $200,000.
So you would leave the 10 at 10?
Yeah,
Just
I think
answer.
so. I don't have any big ticket equipment items that I need to ask you folks for right now.
So the change is to 01, 47, 51.